Tonight we say goodbye to one of our community's most colorful, most loved, and now one of its most sorely missed citizens. We are truly saddened to announce that Judge Joe Summers of the Ramsey County Bench of Channel 2's Almanac program has died of a massive heart attack. The urbane, witty, and often cantankerous Summers was a breath of fresh air on the bench, making history and sometimes making enemies with original opinions that bore Summers' own personal stamp. You might remember that Joe was laid low by a heart attack 3 weeks ago. He seemed to be steadily improving. He was a good friend.
We are saddened to report the death tonight of Ramsey County District Judge Joseph Summers. Judge Summers was 47 years old. He died early tonight at his St. Paul home. Judge Summers had been recovering from a recent heart attack, and his progress seemed very good. Only days ago, tests showed that he would not have to undergo heart bypass surgery. Joe Summers was well known for his quick wit and his sharp intellect. His colorful personality first came to public attention as St. Paul's youngest city attorney. That was back in the 1960s. And he recently co-hosted Channel 2's Friday night program, Almanac. Funeral arrangements are pending.
A special guy, and we'll miss him.
Ramsey County District Judge Joseph Summers is dead tonight. He died at home in St. Paul, and just 3 weeks ago, he was admitted to a hospital following a heart attack. Judge Summers was co-host of KTCA's weekly Almanac program. Judge Summers was 47.
Family, friends, and colleagues are mourning last night's death of Ramsey County District Court Judge Joe Summers. The 47-year-old Summers apparently died of a heart attack, his second in recent weeks. Friends stunned by his death remembered Summers today as a witty judge with a brilliant mind. Summers was also a popular co-host of the Almanac program on Channel 2.
Home health care. It's a booming new industry in our state, and it's almost totally unregulated. Some of us play with computers, some collect salt and pepper shakers. Ta-da! It's time for the index file questions.
But whatever would happen to them in court was mild compared with the impact on their families.
Because you never know when it's...
That's Joe Summers. He is survived by a wife and 5 children. The funeral will be Friday in St. Paul.
One of Minnesota's best-known judges, Ramsey County District Court Judge Joseph Summers, died of an apparent heart attack last night. Today, News 11's Janet Mason visited with Summers' friends and colleagues, reflecting on the life of a unique man.
I bet Belair wishes he'd given away lutefisk. You couldn't possibly buy a vote with lutefisk.
Joseph Summers' wit and engaging personality made KTCA's Almanac one of the station's most popular TV programs. The 47-year-old judge had co-hosted the weekly show since January of last year. Summers' gift for gab helped prove that a public affairs program didn't have to be dull. KTCA says Joseph Summers will be hard to replace.
He brought to the show that unbelievable kind of combination of intellect and wit that you really very rarely find.
Summers was appointed a municipal judge in 1973. 5 years later, he moved to the district court bench. The judge's colorful personality and wit were also evident in the courtroom. Summers' colleagues say beneath that sense of humor was a brilliant mind.
He was a very, very good judge. He was very knowledgeable of the law, and he tempered that with being a very human, compassionate person.
Judge Summers admitted he liked seeing his face on TV and his name in the newspaper. And unlike many of his colleagues, Summers didn't mind cameras in the courtroom. Maybe that's because cameras in the court combined 2 things he enjoyed: being on TV and sitting on the bench. Janet Mason, News 11, St. Paul.
Funeral services are set for 10 a.m. Friday at Nativity Catholic Church in St. Paul.
In St. Paul today, family, friends, and colleagues gathered to pay their final respects to Judge Joe Summers, who died of a heart attack this week at the age of 47. The mourners were many, including Ramsey County Attorney Tom Foley, Mayor George Latimer, Father Tom Hunstiger, and the judge's brother, Tom Summers.
He was loved by everyone. He always had a twinkle in his eye and concern for every person that came before him.
Wouldn't show us up there.
I know.
As a community, sisters and brothers, let us begin and draw close to that Lord, knowing His presence, His love, His peace that He shares with His servant Joel.
presence, ever there for everyone, unselfish, kind, and loving. No task was left undone. Always ready with that smile to beguile both young and old. Though brief it seems your visit with us mortals left behind, each one now holds a treasure in the reaches of their mind. We cannot find the words we seek, but our hearts you now can know. Smile down on us from paradise. We shall miss you, dearest Joe.
Funeral services were held today for Ramsey District Court Judge Joseph Summers. Joe Summers died earlier this week from heart failure. Hundreds of friends gathered today in Nativity Church in St. Paul to pay their final respects to Joe Summers. The crowd was filled with lawyers, fellow judges, politicians, among them former Minnesota governors. Joe Summers became a district judge in 1978 and was known as a fair and a compassionate man. He leaves his wife, Carol, 5 children, and friends beyond counting.
Ramsey County Judge Joseph Summers is being mourned tonight. Part of KTCA's Almanac program tonight paid special tribute to the former co-host. Earlier today, hundreds of friends and relatives attended Summers' funeral in St. Paul. He died of a heart attack earlier this week. He was 47.
As one friend commented, Joe Summers would have loved it. This morning, hundreds of friends, relatives said their final goodbyes to the colorful Ramsey District Court judge. Summers was praised as a man of great wit and compassion who enjoyed his role as a co-host of Channel 2's Almanac as much as he liked being a judge. Summers died Tuesday in his St. Paul home of a heart attack.
It was standing room only at funeral services today for Ramsey District Judge Joe Summers. The colorful judge and co-host of Channel 2's public affairs show Almanac died Tuesday at his St. Paul home. Caroline Lowe reports on today's service.
Joe Summers would have loved the turnout at his funeral this morning in St. Paul. The hundreds of mourners included a long list of politicians, attorneys, judges, and members of the news media. They came to say goodbye to a special friend, a friend who touched so many hearts before dying in the prime of his life. Summers' pastor shared a conversation he had with the judge after his first heart attack last month.
He looked at me and he says, "Tom, if I die, I did everything I could to serve my fellow man."
Friends and relatives smiled and sometimes cried as they remembered their many memories of the colorful judge.
It was the most popular appointment that I made, bar none. I was a little nervous about it at the time because he's the youngest person I ever appointed to the bench, but Joe did everything earlier than the rest of us.
The mourners also included the cast and crew of the Almanac show that Summers co-hosted.
And right now he's there and he's watching all of us. He's probably counting to see if he's satisfied if enough people showed up.
Tonight the show will go on as planned.
It's going to be pretty hard, but hopefully I've left the sadness of my memories here at the church, and we can remember the happy times.
Caroline Lowe, WCCO Television News in St. Paul.
Judge Joe Summers was a well-known personality in the Twin Cities legal community for more than 2 decades. For the past year and a half, he has also been co-host of KTCA Public Television's weekly show, Almanac. On the air, in the courtroom, and in the streets, Summers was the type of person who made an impression. He was loquacious, engaging, egotistical, intelligent, and humorous.
We thought we'd heard it all before, but the news this week proved that there is something new under the sun. Twinkie criminals. Yep. This week, a Minneapolis man was charged with feeding Twinkies to senior citizens. Here's the rub.
Bill Hanley is KTCA's executive producer for news and public affairs.
I can hardly believe how successful he was in doing a very difficult thing. That is, interviewing as an objective
reporter, people that he knew so well. And we were concerned that he might be, you know, kind of light. For example, we had an interview once with Miles Lord. It was before Lord retired. And we had heard rumors, everyone had heard rumors about Lord's pending retirement and where he might go. And we wanted Joe and Jan to do this interview, and I was specifically wondering how Joe would do, longtime friend Miles Lord. He was just great. Very politely put the questions to Lord. Lord evaded them. He pressed the questions. Lord evaded them. He pressed them again until Lord got, you know, visibly kind of perturbed about the whole thing. Joe did a good job.
Summers also had the respect of many in the legal world. He served as St. Paul's city attorney and as a municipal court judge before his appointment to the district court in 1978. Paul Lindholm is an assistant Ramsey County attorney who has watched the judge through the years and has brought numerous cases before him.
The thing that I think struck almost everybody who had ever been in his courtroom was that he, first of all, ran a very relaxed courtroom. He had the ability to put everybody at ease, including the jurors and witnesses who were otherwise total strangers to the process. He had the ability to completely demystify the process for them and bring it back to reality so that they were comfortable with what is otherwise a very uncomfortable situation for many people just because of its strangeness to them.
Lindholm said Summers often injected humor into courtroom proceedings at just the right times by making wry observations. Lindholm said the humor was always light and never embarrassed witnesses, jurors, or lawyers. Some in the legal profession did not like this informality and considered it undignified, but Lindholm said the approach was effective in moving cases along expeditiously. Ramsey County Chief Public Defender Bill Falvey was also familiar with Judge Summers for more than 2 decades.
A lot of people describe him by his wit, by his charm, by his intelligence. But I suppose if he were remembered in the way he would be remembered here in this office for the most part by myself and the other people here would be in the way he treated poor people. The guy had just tremendous compassion for poor people, disadvantaged people. He always treated our clients who are poor with a great deal of respect and a great deal of compassion.
He just liked living. I mean, I know that sounds really trite, but he really did enjoy things.
KTCA's Bill Hanley.
And one of his passions besides motorcycles was computers. He loved computers. And he, because most computer enthusiasts happen to be 17 or 18-year-old kids, he had a whole group of friends who were 17 or 18-year-old computer fanatics. And these kids would show up on Friday nights for the show. They wanting to sit in the studio and wanting to sit in the control room, and we look at each other and say, who are these kids? I mean, who are these 17-year-olds? Oh, we're friends of Joe's from some computer club or another. So Joe didn't seem to have any kind of pretense about him that he was going to be hanging around with only important people. He knew what he liked to do. He liked motorcycles, he liked computers, and he hung around with people who liked those things.
Judge Joe Summers is survived by his wife and 5 children and by his brother and mother. I'm Tom Mearsman.